Good evening, respected doctors, and Happy New Year to all. It is our first webinar in 2021. Welcome you all to our webinar of Daisar Medical Association. Now we are almost 21 delegates, and it is 5 past 4. Today's topic is MIC, that is minimum inhibitory concentration. To enlighten us how to read the MIC values and many other questions, today we have with us Dr. Prasiddha Desai ma'am. She is MD microbiologist and also in the panel of Dr. Ajay Shah Laboratory. Of course, Dr. Ajay Shah sir will also say about the topic in brief. To moderate the session, we have with us leading pathologist from Borivali, Dr. Pratik Jaliwala sir. Actually, today he is having fever, so he will be joining little bit late. Vote of thanks will be given by another panelist from Dr. Ajay Shah Laboratory, Dr. Suchita Pandit. She is MD pathologist. Welcome you, ma'am. To introduce the speaker, we have senior most member from our association and leading family physician from Daisar, Dr. Vivek Gokhale sir. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you,
Dr.
Vinayak.
Gokhale sir.
Yes. Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Vinayak. Today, I am here to introduce Dr. Ajay Shah and his team. Today's topic is webinar MIC breakpoints and their clinical applications. Dr. Ajay Shah needs no introduction as such because everybody knows Dr. Ajay Shah in and around Daisar and Borivali. He is well known for his precise and accurate reports with latest equipments and techniques. Dr. Prasiddha Desai, madam, has done her MBBS and MD from TNMC and Nair Hospital. Incidentally, I also passed my MBBS from Nair Hospital. Madam has done a postgraduate diploma in healthcare management from Wellington Institute. Hereby, I invite Dr. Ajay Shah to kindly start the session. Thank you.
Good evening, friends, and wish you all a very happy new year. This year, beginning of this year is the first our DMA webinar. To me, this year as the beginning appears very cheerful, as my observation is that with related to the COVID is going down, and of course the vaccination is on the way. So probably all of us will be very safe of whatever difficulty we had in the last 9 months. Today's topic, we have decided about microbiology, which Dr. Prasiddha Desai is going to talk. A very important topic of understanding the molecular sensitivity, what we report. So from virology to bacteriology, now we are shifting towards bacteriology. I will hand over the talk to Dr. Prasiddha. She will let us know about this important topic about minimum inhibitory concentration, how to select drug, which drug molecule to be selected for the sensitivity report, and how one can help in the patient management and therefore to the society at large. Thank you.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thank you all for giving me opportunity to present this topic at the Daisar Medical Association. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
And is my slide visible?
Yes, madam.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So today's topic is going to be about MIC breakpoints and their clinical applications. MIC is minimum inhibitory concentration. So basically this is about antibiotic sensitivity report, which forms the core of microbiology, and very happy to start this year with sharing this information with you all. Antibiotics are a very, very important part of our patient treatments whenever they have come in last century, 20th century, a very important discovery, and which has changed the life of humanity. It has increased our life expectancy, and infectious diseases has become a very easy to tackle diseases on because of the antibiotics. But along with antibiotic, though there are new antibiotics are coming, the resistance to this antibiotics is also developing. And this resistance is mainly because of the antibiotic pressure, for which somehow we are, as a medical fraternity, somehow responsible. Because how the antibiotic resistance develops, I am sure everybody knows it, but just I am briefing it before going to my actual topic. When there is large number, there is a combination, there is a colony of bacteria, there is bacteria in the environment. When we introduce an antibiotic molecule, what happens? Out of this bacteria, some bacteria are sensitive to the antibiotic and some are resistant. So this antibiotic kills all the sensitive bacteria, but the resistant ones remain and they start multiplying. And now the whole bacterial and bacteria, the lot of bacteria becomes antibiotic resistant. And the boon to the bacteria is that they can share this resistance not only among their own species and their own brothers and sisters, but with their distant cousins, so that different species they can transfer this resistance. And like there are multi-drug resistant organisms develop. Now this multi-drug resistant organisms and nowadays pan-drug resistant organisms cause a lot of trouble to the patient. We see the hopeless situations where patients do not have any antibiotic, and it looks like we are in post-antibiotic era. So this is a small attempt to help the clinicians by to interpret the antibiotic sensitivity report and choose the better antibiotic, correct antibiotic, and help in antibiotic stewardship.
Ma'am,
So,
1 minute.
right.
Can the screen be enlarged?
Now is it okay?
No,
Sir?
ma'am.
Madam, going on a presentation and slideshow, it is better. It is full maximize.
Right, na? So now you
No,
are able to
no, ma'am. Jignesh.
To the presentation.
Yes.
अच्छा, slide. Okay, okay.
Slide presentation, yeah.
Okay, so this way it is better. Is it? Hello?
No.
No.
Raju.
Upper
Make
part
it-
is not visible.
Make it
Upper
full
part-
screen. Full screen it should come.
Enough. Okay.
नहीं. So now I start with slideshow.
Madam, still not enlarged. It is smaller. There is some button for enlarging the screen.
Is it okay?
No, still not.
Upper part is not visible, madam.
Okay, yes. Therefore, that I will.
Slideshow. No.
Is it okay now? No.
Just a minute.
Now okay.
Okay.
Yeah, now okay.
Okay, yes. It's okay now.
Okay. So yeah, when I'm changing the slide, if anything, please let me know. So antibiotic sensitivity, it started from disc diffusion. Previously, we were using disc diffusion methods, and now we have shifted to automation. So so there is a huge change from last, I think, 6-7 years. We are completely majority work we are doing on automation. So what is the difference between these two methods? What are the limitations and what are the advantages of each method? Both methods are definitely good, but there are certain disadvantages with this diffusion. So we shifted over to automated systems. So in this diffusion, we were not able to give MIC values, which is what today I'm going to talk about. With automated systems, we are able to give MIC values. Now, what has happened whenever we do interpret any sensitivity for any organisms, we have to refer to certain guidelines, which are known as CLSI guidelines, which majority of the world uses, or otherwise there are UCAS guidelines, which is European guidelines, which are equally good. So when these guidelines come, as they keep on changing every year, now as they take a lot of data and give us the interpretation criteria, in which now as the time is going, they are seeing that zone diameter values are not matching with the clinical outcome. So for few antibiotics they have stopped giving the zone diameter. So that is another disadvantages with these diffusions. Then, as we know, the report takes overnight growth, and the report would be available next day only. While in case of automated systems, what happens is the machine keeps on reading the report results every 1 hour. So whenever the results are ready, it can give at least few antibiotics, and usually depending on the organism, depending on the growth, it will come within 8 to 24 hours. So sometimes results are ready within 8 hours, and which can be helpful in a hospital setups for where it can be immediately told to the maybe for critical patients or something. When next is disk diffusion is always a cumbersome method. Is everything is manual. You have to put the disk, you have to read the zone diameters for each antibiotic, and then manually enter it in your system. So it is a tedious job. Again, there are nothing can be integrated, nothing can be automated here. So when LIS is lab information system, and so direct integration is not possible, which is a very high advantage with our automated systems, where the integration with LIS is possible. So what happens is there is a lot of reduction in manual work, and the errors are also reduced. And that is another thing. Now, when we come to the disadvantages of automated system, definitely it is an expensive system, so the cost increases. And another important disadvantage I can say is fixed antibiotics panels are available. So when I say I want to test for gram-negative organisms, so they have it comes in a cassette, and there are certain few antibiotic, they have a limitation that many antibiotics only they can use in a cassette. So but whatever right now we are using, these are based on Indian guidelines. So majority of antibiotics are covered, but if we require some additional antibiotic which we cannot add, we have to go for disk diffusions. For example, I'll give for salmonella. Salmonella blood culture, when we use gram-negative CARs, we do not get sensitivity for azithromycin. Now, azithromycin is many nowadays, I mean, most of the people are using azithromycin for treating. So that we have to go back to disk diffusions. So similarly for fosfomycin, many of the antibiotic, few card doesn't have fosfomycin in it, and many doctors are using fosfomycin because it is a very good sensitivity and very orally available. So again, we have to go back to disk diffusions. So this is the advantage. They are cheaper and they are flexible. So I can introduce as many drugs as possible, and that can be customized. Another important disadvantage which happens in the practical usage is we need a pure growth, and we need a heavy growth. So sometimes we cannot do the sensitivity on automated systems for certain organisms, and then we have to go back to the conventional methods to avoid the delay. Because if the pure growth is not there, if there is mixed growth, it is a broad based method, it's a machine method, so machine cannot distinguish between a contamination. So unless and until pure growth is there, I cannot put it into the machine, and again it requires a certain amount of growth. If the growth is very less, I cannot put it in the machine. So in that situations, we might go back to zone diameters. Okay, so the main issue is now, this was our report, or this is our report when we give zone diameters, which is made on modified herbivore method, and we give two things. There are antibiotics and there is susceptibility. Very clear and very simple report. Nothing for interpretation, nothing complicated. But when we go for this report, the slide is visible, na sir? When we go for this report, what happens is, see, there are multiple things now, and I'm basically, this particular exercise is to explain what are these different things in this report. So what we have is antimicrobial molecules, where we have given all the antibiotics based on their groups of antibiotics, so it's easier for you to interpret. Apart from that, if many of you are using already our reports, so you might have noticed there are certain dollar marks or certain marks here against some antibiotics. Now these marks are very important. These are the second line antibiotics, so these are needs to be reserved, because we can use it for a resistant organism. So whenever possible, the first thing would be, I would like to say that whenever possible, if your antibiotics are of first generation, when we call it first generation and second generation, so when the antibiotics of first generation which are not marked and they are sensitive, then please use them. And if they're not possible to give them, or they're resistant, or there is some patient condition which avoids you to give these antibiotics, then only go to the second generation antibiotics. Now, after antibiotics, there is a column which is interpretation, where we have MIC values, and this is something RS or I, that is resistant, susceptible, or intermediate. Along with it, there are certain values. These are the MIC values, or minimum inhibitory values. Next, we come to MIC breakpoints, or minimum breakpoints for, now these are something like reference ranges. When you see sugar, so you have a reference range, what is a lower range, what is higher range, something similar to that. So it is not very complicated to use these results. So every antibiotic will have its corresponding MIC breakpoint. So there is susceptible breakpoint, intermediate, and there is a resistant breakpoint. Now, when we say results, there are either four: susceptible, resistant, intermediate, and there is a new terminology which is coming last 2 years back, which CLSI has introduced, susceptible dose dependent, which is a very good thing, which I will explain shortly. Susceptible means sensitive, and sensitive means this antibiotic can be used for this particular infection with most probably it will be successful. Resistant means even if you use this antibiotic even with higher dosage or extra dosage, most likely it will not give any result. It will not be useful. Then comes something intermediate, which is in between susceptible and resistant. Intermediate means what? It is not susceptible, but it is not even resistant. So it is somewhere in between. The therapeutic effect is uncertain. So you might try higher dosage, you might try a higher frequency, and that might work, but we cannot say for sure. So in this intermediate category, now they have come up with something called a susceptible dose dependent category. Now this category right now is only available for cefepime and fluconazole. So what does it mean is, susceptibility is dependent on dosage regimen. That means this antibiotic will not be effective when you give in normal dosages, but in higher dosages or higher frequency, or maybe both, it will be susceptible. So, and they have defined the dosages based on their MIC values. Now this example I'm included in my presentation, so it will come in after few slides. So this is our report. There is some interpretation which comes with our reports, and we would like to, I would be explaining each and every line during this particular presentation. What does it mean? So as I have already explained one thing, that is these antibiotics are higher antibiotics and to be used with discrimination only for if lower antibiotics are not effective. So that is our sign, and please look for this sign when you're giving the antibiotics. So basically this is to avoid the development of antibiotic resistance. Then we will come to our next slide. So the aim of this whole presentation is to encourage and support clinicians to improve the antimicrobial dosing, resulting in better patient outcomes and limiting emergence of antimicrobial resistance. There are two things, because when you use an antibiotic, evidence-based antibiotic, an antibiotic based on susceptibility report, what is you're doing is that is not only good for the patient but also for the community overall, because the drug resistance in the community decreases, and for the future patients we are going to have better sensitivity reports. So the objective of this particular presentation is to understand what is MIC or minimum inhibitory concentration, to understand meaning of breakpoints, interpret the MIC and breakpoints, and choose the antibiotics depending on ASD report. So what is MIC? MIC is, full form is minimum inhibitory concentration. Minimum inhibitory concentration in itself is quite descriptive. Minimum means lowest. Concentration, when we are talking about, is drug concentration. So it is the lowest concentration of drug which is inhibitory to a particular microorganism. So it is the lowest concentration of drug that inhibits the growth of a microorganism. So in general, it gives you the susceptibility to that microorganism. So your MIC, when it is low, it is highly susceptible. If the drug has a MIC of high MIC, then it is low, the susceptibility is low. So this is a quite technical slide. I hope I don't bore you with this slide, but it is important to understand what is MIC. So basically how MIC is basically calculated. So there are 7 tubes. So there are test tubes are taken in which the standard inoculum of the microorganism is put, and in that rising concentration of the drug is added. So say 1 microgram, 2 microgram, 4 microgram, 8 microgram. Normally it is doubling concentration, and then this whole set is incubated overnight. Afterwards, we take out the tube and see for the growth. Now the growth appears as turbidity. So in this particular set, we can see number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. They all have turbidity. It is going down, but still it is turbid till 5th. But the tube number 6 is completely clear. Tube number 7 is clear. So there is no growth in these 2 tubes. Now the number 6 tube is the tube where there is absolutely no growth. This is a minimum concentration where there was no growth. So this is your MIC, or this is minimum inhibitory concentration. So that is the basic principle of MIC calculation, and that is used in various methods. Now this is a tube method. So similar can be done in a in the ELISA plates or in a smaller tubes. So that is micro broth method, and that can be automated in the system. So the machine has something like that, which is in a miniature format, and the machine keeps on reading it every hourly to give us the results. The similar thing can be done. What we are seeing here is e-test. Again, e-test is something which also gives MIC. It is a manual method where the growth comes in the Petri dish, and similar to antibiotic sensitivity by zone diameter, and the strip is put in it. This strip has gradations of antibiotics, so we calculate the MIC based on this, where this eclipse comes after the growth. So that is more technical, so I'm not going into detail. So how do you use MIC values? So uses are to select the most appropriate antibiotic and also to customize antibiotic dosages. So in general, if I know the MIC, the drug that is in vitro now. So when the drug concentration should be around 4 to 5 times of that MIC in vivo, where the antibiotic needs to act. So say in the serum, if the antibiotic active, then it is 4 to 5 times of the MIC value in the serum. But if it is in the CSF, then it should be able to reach that concentration in the CSF. So only MIC will not help us to determine whether the drug is susceptible or resistant. What we need is MIC breakpoints or the references which we have. So what is MIC breakpoint? It is a concentration of an antimicrobial which determines whether the bacterial species is susceptible or resistant to a particular antibiotic. Now, when we determine MIC, it will just tell me that 2 microgram per ml is an MIC of that, say, augmentin for a E. coli. Now, whether that means that 8 microgram per ml should be available in the body at the site of action. Now, this particular antibiotic, can this particular concentration be achieved at that site? It will depend on many things. Whether at that concentration, the drug is toxic to the body, whether the body is able to, depending on your route of administration, depending on the drugs, pharmacokinetics, pharmacodynamics, whether it is able to achieve that concentration, whether that is crossing, if it is in the, say, in the CSF or it is in the synovial fluid, is this particular drug is crossing that blood-brain barrier, or it is reaching the eye or reaching the joint. All these factors need to be counted. So according to that, now that is a very tedious job, and luckily that job is done by CLSI and UCAS for us. They are taking a large number of data, they are taking large number of isolates, and daily they are, they are interpreting their MIC values, their breakpoints, they are determining the breakpoints, and they are updating us annually. So annually there is usually an update which comes. Accordingly, we change the breakpoint and criteria for susceptibility. So in general, when you so this is all technical. So in general, for a clinician, MIC is less than the susceptible breakpoint, then the isolate is susceptible to that particular antibiotic. So what I have done is to make it more interactive, I have taken few cases, and then I don't know, from Zoom we will not be able to interact, but then we can decide what should be the drug of choice in these cases. So the first case what I have taken is a patient with meningitis. We started on Monosafe as empiric therapy. Before that, CSF culture was sent, and what we see is the CSF culture has grown Streptococcus pneumoniae with ceftriaxone MIC of 1 microgram per ml. So now the question to a clinician is whether he should continue the Monosafe or he has to change it to another drug. Now we know the MIC, but unless and until we know the MIC breakpoints, we will not be able to say whether it is sensitive or resistant. So what happens? So this is just to give you idea how do we understand whether it is sensitive or resistant. And the second thing is why it is important for us to know that sometimes we don't know from where the sample is. So that should be very clear which is the source of the sample. So here you can see, I think, I don't know whether it's visible or not. This is ceftriaxone. It is a CLSI document basically, where we are seeing the antimicrobial agents here and the interpretive criteria here. So here there is zone diameter breakpoints and there are MIC breakpoints. Now, as you can see, for ceftriaxone, there are 2 lines. One is meningitis and one is non-meningitis. Now, as I was saying, for certain antibiotics, there are no zone diameters breakpoints available. So, for this strep pneumoniae, ceftriaxone, I cannot decide on basis of this diffusion methods. I have to go for the MIC breakpoints. Okay, so now here are 2 breakpoints. So this is susceptible breakpoint, this is intermediate, and this is resistant. So my susceptible, what we have to focus is on susceptible breakpoint. This is 0.5 for meningitis. And the same thing for non-meningitis is less than 1. So when my less than or equal to 1. So when my MIC has 1, and if it would have been a non-meningitis case, say the strep pneumonia would have been grown in a pneumonia case, then this strep pneumonia could be susceptible to ceftriaxone. But as it has grown in CSF, it is resistant. So it is intermediate. So I cannot give ceftriaxone in this patient. So that is the, again, take home message you have to communicate. So this is some the same thing whatever from CLSI is comes on our report as an interpretation MIC and MIC breakpoint. This is our susceptible, intermediate, resistant breakpoints which are taken from CLSI. So now you can understand this 8 amoxiclavulinic acid, 8 is a MIC value, while susceptible breakpoint is less than equal to 8/4, intermediate breakpoint is 16/8, and resistant breakpoint is more than equal to 32/16. So now why here 8 and why here 8/4? You might be questioning. So let us see, this is amoxiclav. So there is beta-lactam and beta-lactamase inhibitor concentration. So here we are just getting the amoxicillin concentration. Clavulanic acid concentration doesn't matter. So this is 8 and this is 8. So, and this is 16 and this is 4. Now I will get back to same report after some slides. In our next case, this case 2, what I'm going to discuss is when you have 2-3 antibiotics which are sensitive, then how do you choose which antibiotic to be taken based on your MIC and MVCs, that is breakpoints. So in this case, there is a 23-year-old 60 kg unmarried female with no significant medical or family history. She comes in casualty with the symptoms of urosepsis. Now urine culture is sent and she started on ampicillin 1 gram IV 6 hourly and single dose of gentamicin 340 milligram IV as per their empiric antibiotic therapy. So on day 2, the microbiology department has called up and informed that there is a growth of gram-negative bacteria, probably E. coli, with a colony count more than 10⁵, that is significant bacteria colony count. And so, because this is gram-negative, ampicillin it acts on gram-negative, so it is not changed. On day 3, the final report has come, which has identified it as E. coli. And now the MIC of ampicillin has come as 8 microgram per ml, which is resistant. So definitely now this antibiotic has to be changed. So then what are the other sensitive antibiotics? Now there are 3 choices which we see here, 4 choices which we see here. Ciprofloxacin with MIC less than equal to 0.64 sensitive. Cefotaxime 0.25 MIC which is also sensitive. Meropenem 0.125 MIC and piptaz 8 microgram per ml as MIC. So what should be the drug of choice? So how? Now it will depend on what are the criteria. So this will depend on your MIC, and what you have to look out for is susceptible breakpoint, which I showed you in the last report. I am again going to go back to this report in next slide. So here ciprofloxacin has MIC less than equal to 0.064. It has susceptible breakpoint of 0.5. Now when you divide this susceptible breakpoint by MIC, what value you get is 7.8. That is susceptible breakpoint by MIC index. Cefotaxime has 0.25 MIC and 1 as a susceptible breakpoint. So here 1 by 0.25, we are getting a susceptible breakpoint upon MIC as 4. Then we have meropenem, which has MIC 0.125, susceptible breakpoint as 2, and susceptible breakpoint by MIC ratio as 16. For piptaz, MIC is 8, susceptible breakpoint is also 8, so this ratio is 1. So now one criteria is the higher the susceptible breakpoint upon MIC ratio, the better the the lesser the chances of developing the resistance over a long term of treatment. So the higher the value, the better the antibiotic. So here we can see that all four out of these, ciproflox has 7.8 susceptible breakpoint by MIC, cefotaxime has 4, meropenem 16, and piptaz 1. So again, 16 meropenem has the highest ratio, followed by ciproflox, followed by cefotaxime, and then piptaz. So what should be our drug of choice? Should it be meropenem? So this is one criteria for deciding the drug. But first thing I have to see is, what you can see, these are two are meropenem is a reserved drug, or meropenem is a second line drug. So we should avoid giving it as far as possible when we have these two first line drugs available. Now ciprofloxacin with very good ratio would be my drug of choice. Why? Because it can be given orally. It is a first line drug, and also that there are the two criteria. So whenever you're choosing drug, choose the drug which is not broad spectrum, which is narrow spectrum, so that the drug resistance development doesn't happen. Now so in these four things, ciproflox is my drug of choice. But say this ciprofloxacin would have been resistant, then what should have been amongst these three? What should have been my drug of choice? It should have been cefotaxime. Though it is not available, now nothing is available orally amongst three. So cefotaxime though has 4 as the ratio, but still it is a very good difference between the susceptible breakpoint and the MIC. So it can be given very safely, very efficiently, and it is again going to prevent future development of drug resistance. So that is the take-home message. When you are choosing antibiotic, see the susceptible breakpoint upon MIC. When the larger the value, it is better. But apart from that, also see whether the antibiotic is lower one or higher one, whether it is orally available, and any other patient related factors will also be taken care of, like if the patient is toxic to it, or if there is any contraindication, etc. So now coming back to our report, it was amox. So let us calculate this value, this ratio in this patient. So here amoxiclav, MIC breakpoint is 8 and MIC is 8. So here the ratio is 1. And for piptaz, MIC breakpoint is 16 and MIC is 4. So the ratio here is 4. So that is just for your exercise. Now next use of this MICs is on deciding dosing regimen. I spoke about cefepime and something called as SDD, or susceptible dose dependent values. So I'm going to explain this in this particular slide. So when cefepime is there, the breakpoints are susceptible if less than equal to 2 microgram per ml, susceptible dose dependent when it is 4 or 8 microgram per ml, and resistant if more than 16 microgram per ml. So if the cefepime becomes susceptible, then the normal dosage regimen of 1 gram every 12 hours is useful, or it will be effective. But when SDD comes and the MIC, then you have to see the MICs. If the MIC is 4, then you can give either 1 gram every 8 hourly, that is same dose, but you have increased the frequency, or 2 gram every 12 hourly. That is, you have increased the dosage and kept the frequency same. And if it result comes as SDD but MIC is 8, then you have to increase the dosage as well as frequency. So you give 2 gram every 8 hourly, and this dosage regimen is given by CLSI. Now I think so far so good. What is the next? I hope I'm not making you all sleep or something. So the case 3 I'm going to go to, and that is a patient with VAP, that is ventilator associated pneumonia, with a creatinine clearance of 170 ml per minute, which indicates high meropenem clearance, and this patient will require higher dosage. In this case, how you will decide whether you should give meropenem and how would you decide the dosage of meropenem? If your MIC would have been 0.25 microgram per ml and susceptible, then your mid dosing interval concentration, which I spoke about, that it is 4 times the MIC value. It should be 4 times that MIC value to be effective. So here it is 1 microgram per ml, which is needed. And when you are giving 1 gram every 8 hourly IV, this can be easily achieved. So this can work with a normal dosage. But here, if the MIC would have been 4, it would be intermediate. And then your mid dosing interval concentration of high 16 would be needed. It is 4 times the MIC value. So how will you achieve it? It is the calculation which is given by the company. Maybe it will be 2 gram every 6 hourly, that is higher or more frequent dosage. Or you can give a 3-hour infusion instead of 30-minute infusion for meropenem, that is prolonged infusion with 1 microgram, the same dose every 8 hours. So this is how you use MIC for choosing the dosage. Next, I come to a very common scenario, which is MRSA. There is a patient who has grown MRSA in his pus, and drug of choice was vancomycin. It was susceptible with MIC was 1 microgram per ml. This was done in early February. So he's treated on vancomycin. But what has happened is the same patient has come in March, is still oozing the pus, and same the culture is sent. It has again grown MRSA. Vancomycin has come susceptible. The vancomycin breakpoint is 2. So it is MIC 1.5 has come and it is still susceptible. Now the question is whether we should continue vancomycin or we should not continue it. Now in this case, what we are seeing, vancomycin is susceptible. So why should not we continue with vancomycin? The reason here we should not continue, the thing is this MRSA is going to develop resistance to this vancomycin, which is shown by increasing MIC. The organism, or after receiving treatment for 1 month, the patient has not recovered from MRSA infection. The patient, the MRSA is still able to grow, and so thus definitely there is going to be a development of resistance, and so we have to change the antibiotic. So this is how we can use the MIC values to early detection of resistance and changing the antibiotic. Definitely there are certain limitations to MIC or limitations to antibiotic sensitivity reports, because the main thing is they might not always correlate with the clinical outcomes. So if the antibiotic is not it will not be effective if it does not penetrate the affected tissue. Like for example, CNS. I give you example of erythromycin. Now suppose a patient has got CSF and developed some Staph aureus infection in it, and the Staph aureus comes to be erythromycin sensitive. As we all know, erythromycin doesn't cross blood-brain barrier and we cannot give it into the meningitis. So in this case, if usually we do not report it, but say if it would have been reported and that we cannot use the same antibiotic for meningitis treatment. Or so we have to one, keep into mind where we are using it. Sometimes what happens, we give the antibiotic as resistant, and many times in UTI cases it happens that the patient has already received treatment and by the time our report comes the patient has cleared and he is very fine. So then we get a lot of questions, then how this patient has been responded to the treatment, your report doesn't match. So this happens because there are many antibiotics which are excreted in urine. So the concentration will become so high that it would be detrimental to the organism. So even if your in vitro sensitivity says that it is resistant, in vivo, because there is so much concentration of drug, still it will be effective. Again, in cases of critically ill patients, we may have altered pharmacodynamics and pharmacokinetics, so we have to take that also in mind. So there might be some changes in vitro susceptibility and in vivo susceptibility. Now going back to the very important part, which is our report interpretation. So I'm going to read each line and tell you what does it mean. So yeah, the first line I've already said that these are the antibiotics which are higher antibiotics or needs to be reserved. Second is the method, which is microbrod dilution method. Then the interpretation of MIC or minimum inhibitory concentration. MIC number is the lowest concentration quantitative value of drug that inhibits the growth of a given strain of bacteria and useful in therapeutic decision making. So that's what I have explained till now. So I think this must be clear by now. Then sensitive, it indicates that if it's effective at lowest dilution tested. That means whatever your routine dose of antibiotic is given, it would be effective in this patient. Next is intermediate, which indicates it may be effective in higher doses. So as I said, intermediate means the result might not be, it is not sure what result it will give. It might be effective, might not be effective. And resistant, that means it indicates unlikely to be effective. Then MIC reference ranges of different organisms for different drugs vary according to CLSI guidelines. So as we saw that there are, say suppose Staphylococcus aureus, the MIC breakpoint for ampicillin for Staphylococcus aureus would be different than that of E. coli. So whenever we are seeing the resistance, it has to be correlated with our given reference ranges or given breakpoints. MIC of one antibiotic should be correlated with concerned reference range only and should not be compared with other antibiotics. That means what happens is previously, suppose I get only MIC report with only MIC values and I do not have an MBC or breakpoints. What happens is usual tendency when we started was that the MIC with lowest value should be the best drug. But it doesn't happen. As we are seeing, the different antibiotics will have different combinations. Something would be effective at 8 microgram, something would be effective at 0.25 microgram. So both are sensitive. So only seeing the MIC values of different antibiotics will not be a right thing to do. And so we are giving these breakpoints for your references. And next is, it is advisable to give the susceptible antibiotics of lower generation with higher sensitive breakpoint upon MIC ratio, which again I have explained right now. Next is sensitivity of following antibiotics can be interpreted based on surrogate antibiotics. So as we are humanly not possible, we cannot test all antibiotics. So what happens is we have certain antibiotics which will act as surrogate markers for other antibiotics. Like for example, for first generation cephalosporins, cephalothin or cefazolin would be surrogate marker for cefadroxil, cefpodoxime or cephalexin. So if you are susceptible to cephalothin or cefazolin, then all these three antibiotics also would be susceptible. When we test for ceftriaxone, that the result could be extrapolated to cefotaxime. And very, very important for Staphylococcus. Now, Staphylococcus, MRSA and MSSA, that is methicillin sensitive and methicillin resistant, the treatment differs quite a lot. So when we are testing oxacillin for Staphylococcus and when oxacillin comes resistant, it means it is resistant to all the beta-lactam group. That means it is resistant to cloxacillin, methicillin, amoxiclav, ampicillin, piptaz, first 4th generation cephalosporin, and carbapenem. So all this beta-lactam group is resistant, and it is also true vice versa. That means if your Staphylococcus is methicillin sensitive, that means it is sensitive to all these drugs. But then when methicillin sensitive is there, it's always better to give first generation cephalosporins or cloxacillin and amoxiclav. As a choice, they work far better than vancomycin or linezolid. And again, they should be reserved. For enterococci, ampicillin, when we test, it could be extrapolated to augmentin, that is amoxiclav, amoxicillin, ampicillobactam, and piperacillin tazobactam. So that is another. So now I think I've covered most of the topics. So this is a quick recap basically. So I would wish that you yourself will do this exercise. A case of UTI with ESBL positive E. coli has come, and based on antibiotic sensitivity report, let's choose the optimum antibiotic. So this is our report. So where we see these are the sensitive antibiotics. There are carbapenems and there are aminoglycosides. Now we are seeing imipenem, MIC 0.25 and mean susceptible breakpoint is 1. So here the ratio is 1 by 0.25, that is 4. Meropenem ratio is 1 by 0.25, again 4. Ertapenem is, now doripenem is a reduced antibiotic which is given by our machine, which has some it has a algorithm, it has a advanced expert system which helps us in reducing the antibiotics. Ertapenem, it has MIC 0.5, less than 0.5. Again, and here breakpoint is susceptible breakpoint is 0.5. So here the ratio is 1. So it has a lower ratio. When we go for gentamicin, MIC is 1, susceptible breakpoint is 4, the ratio is 4. Amikacin, MIC 2, susceptible breakpoint 16, ratio is 8. Now, what should be the drug of choice in this case? Anything like any imipenem, meropenem, or gentamicin, amikacin, everything would work well. Here, if possible, if the patient condition permits, gentamicin may lower antibiotic would be given. If it is not possible, then maybe amikacin. But we should try to reserve the carbapenems. Now the second case. Here, a 50-year female comes with carbuncle on the back and it grows MRSA in the culture. Now choose the antibiotic. On the report, where we can see all the, it is MRSA, so all the carbapenems, cephalosporins are resistant. What we have is a vancomycin, susceptible 0.5 and its breakpoint is 2. Now here why I have shown you this particular report is where you can see there is something, there are different breakpoints for cons. Cons is coagulase negative staphylococci. So if for example, why I want to show it, because if this particular vancomycin MIC would have been 2, it would have been or say 4, it would have been resistant for vancomycin Staph aureus, MRSA, that is Staph aureus, but it would be still susceptible for coagulase negative staph. This is just for example. Then teicoplanin, again 0.5 and breakpoint, susceptible breakpoint is 8. So here the ratio is 16. Gentamicin, susceptible 1, breakpoint is 4, ratio is 4. Erythromycin, susceptible less than equal to 0.25 and breakpoint is 0.5. Here the ratio becomes 2. And for tetracycline, susceptible less than equal to 1, breakpoint is 4. So the ratio is 4. So what should be the drug of choice here? Definitely, because luckily in this case we have macrolides, that is erythromycin group susceptible and tetracycline group susceptible. Again, they are orally available, like you can give doxycycline. So this should be the drug of choice because they are lower drugs. Amongst these, maybe between two, we might choose to go for tetracycline because it has high ratio. So yeah, here we can go for tetracycline groups, including doxy or minocycline also. But suppose the same in next case, there is growth of MRSA in a 3-year-old boy with abscess, then what should be the antibiotic of choice? The report is similar. Now in this case, because we cannot give tetracycline, because of his age, there is contraindication. Here we might go for erythromycin. So I think I end my topic with this. The take-home message is use antibiotic susceptibility report to choose the most appropriate antibiotic. Reduce the use of inappropriate antibiotics. Use antibiotic susceptibility report to know the resistance pattern for epidemiological purpose. This is important because sometimes what happens, patient is already started on some empiric treatment and patient responds, and after 2 days the report comes. So basically, many people think it is useless for this patient who's already responded. Why should I spend that money on this culture report? But it does not only help the patient. Come to know what is the susceptibility pattern in your own practice, in your own community, and you can choose your empiric therapy accordingly. You might see that certain antibiotics are changing, they are getting resistant. So you can choose or you can change your, empiric treatment to look for the changing trends in your day-to-day practice to decide the optimum empiric therapies. So that is our take-home message. And if any questions, I would like to.
I will ask Pratik sir.
So, Dr. Prasida,
Yeah.
so I first and foremost, I must congratulate you for this excellent presentation. It is an extremely complex and difficult topic to understand, and nobody would have done it better than what you have done right now. So, congratulations for that.
Thank you.
I would like to invite any questions if anybody wants to ask.
Madam, can I ask a question?
Yes, yes. Please go ahead.
If patient is on antibiotic, and then how do you interpret MIC value?
See the patient. If the patient is already on antibiotic, then whatever your report comes, if the patient started on antibiotic and then you have sent the report. Now, after 2 days, the report comes. Now, based on the report, see if the either that particular antibiotic sensitive or resistant. If it is sensitive, say for example, you are suspecting MRSA and you have started him on linezolid, and the report comes, the organism grows as MSSA. So here, yeah, definitely it is sensitive to linezolid, but now because you can, what we call is de-escalate this drug. We can, based on our lower drugs, we can give based on this report. So I think that, or if you're suppose you have given him peptides for some UTI and the antibiotic susceptibility has come as sensitive to peptides, then you can continue. If it has come resistant, then you might have to change to maybe higher drug like imipenem, meropenem. So then when you're choosing the higher drugs, you can use this MIC breakpoints and choose it.
Similar way for fungal and tuberculosis, the same MIC values are useful.
For fungus, fungus basically for Candida, the MIC values do come and they're interpreted accordingly. But for Mycobacterium tuberculosis, usually there is only there is no MIC value because we are choosing, we cannot escalate the drug dosages. They are interpreted as sensitive resistant. So there is no MIC values. There is a single drug interpretation. So there is nothing for TB.
Thank you.
When we do MOTT, that is atypical mycobacteria sensitivity, there is no breakpoint, but yeah, that is the same method we are using. That is MIC method, microprotection.
Madam, in Hinduja, they are doing some method like motif or modif.
Malditov.
Yeah,
Yes.
Meditov. Yeah.
Yeah, so Malditov is basically a very good, it's a very good method for identification of bacteria. What it does is when the growth comes, the same colony of the organism can be used in that machine. You get the result within 15 minutes to half an hour for identification, and it also gives you resistance patterns. So maybe if it is carbapenem product producer or it is ESBL producer, it will tell you that. So that is the mandate of method is mainly for identification. So it reduces the turnaround time, you can say.
Madam, nowadays in multi-PCR, they say instead of doing multi-PCR, you go for only single organism. Is it right?
Multiplex PCR. So see, multiplex PCR is done for you. It is very useful for certain syndromes. Like for example, respiratory pan. There are respiratory panels. Like in your cultures, we are not able to find out atypical organisms like mycoplasma or chlamydia. So all these organisms are covered in this multiplex PCR. So what happens is it becomes in a one go we can find out the organism, and there is only this method which is molecular which can these cases.
They say the results are not better with multiplex compared to single organism.
Yeah. So when you're comparing molecular to molecular, yeah, definitely, because the sensitivity reduces because of multiplexing. But if you know, like for example, if you are very much in CSF, you are more see HSV would be your major concern, then better to go for HSV PCR only than going for maybe multiplexing when you are sure that what is the organism. When you are going for say atypical pneumonia, and in that panel either you can, but see, it becomes very costly when you go for individual drugs. That is the major advantage with multiplexing. So when you have to choose between 2-3 organisms, then it is better to go individually. But when you have you don't know what is it, then it is multiplexing will help you in some.
Thank you.
Can I add to that? So basically, when we are talking about cultures and multiplexing PCR, we need to understand one important point is that when we are talking about cultures at a laboratory level, like in our clinical practice, we are mostly talking about bacteria. Whereas when we are talking about multiplex PCR is more commonly employed when there is an identification required more towards the viruses also in addition to the bacteria. And viruses will not grow in our routine cultures. So that is where multiplex PCR becomes more useful. It gives you a wide variety of organisms in a single test.
Perfect.
Definitely, that's what when viruses and these atypical organisms cannot be cultured. That's why we have only this option of molecular.
So any more question?
There are no more questions, they can write it down later on to our email to Prasiddha or to me, and we will be able to answer.
Okay, so friends, I think so no any more questions are remain. So it is a very interesting and informative questions answer session. So thank you, Dr. Ajay Shah, Dr. Prasiddha Desai, and Dr. Pratik Jariwala, sir. Now here I am requesting our chairperson come our lovable DMA member, Dr. Suchita Pandit, madam, to give the vote of thanks.
Hello, everybody. As the famous English saying goes, in any adverse situation, there is always a blessing hidden in disguise. The present COVID pandemic is the apt example of the same. The Daisar Medical Association has very well picked up this moment to start this valuable academic activity, which we can all attend from the leisures of our living room. This ongoing pandemic has once again proved the importance of microbiology department and the people who head and run the show. Dr. Ajay Shah and Dr. Prasiddha Desai are two such marvel frontline warriors. In spite of their busy and tedious work schedule, it was really a great honor to have them amidst us on this winter evening. Thank you, Dr. Prasida, for the wonderful presentation. It leaves no doubt in my mind that our knowledge regarding antibiotic sensitivity test has multiplied multifold from its current state within the last 1 hour. I join with my fellow DMA colleagues to bow in gratitude from the bottom of our hearts. The introducer and the moderator are the personnel responsible for the smooth functioning of the academic activity. We definitely feel blessed to have among us a very senior doctor, Dr. Vivek Gokhale, as an introducer, and another renowned pathologist, Dr. Pratik Jariwala, who successfully shouldered such a major task. I take this valuable opportunity to invite the participants of today's CME to approach our microbiology department in person for any queries regarding antibiotic sensitivity testing. Your counter response will determine the success of today's CME. We are just one phone call away. You can call anytime regarding any difficulties to solve about antibiotic sensitivity testing. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Suchita Madam. Dear friends, today is the 19th webinar of our series, and Dr. Prasida Desai Madam is delivering excellent lecture to us and updating our knowledge about MIC breakpoint and their clinical application. So thank you, Dr. Ajay Shah sir, Dr. Prasida Desai Madam, Dr. Pratik Jariwala sir, Dr. Vivek Gokhale sir, Dr. Suchita Madam, and Dr. Vinayak Desai sir. Behalf of Daisar Medical Association, here I am Dr. Jignesh Vasan Chauhan, announce the end of today's webinar session. Thank you, everyone.